Okay, so decision made. Walking away. No dramatic confrontation. No tearful goodbyes. No anything. Just gone. Like I'd never been there at all. Which, honestly, felt kind of fitting, considering how often I felt invisible in that house. It wasn't a spur-of-the-moment thing. I'd been planning it quietly, methodically, for weeks. Ever since, ever since Mark's birthday party. The final straw, the confirmation that I was living a lie. I started small, sorting through my things, deciding what to take, what to leave behind. It was surprisingly clinical. Like I was packing for a business trip, not dismantling my life. My clothes, my books, my stuff. It all felt so disconnected, like it belonged to someone else. I packed a suitcase, a duffel bag, a few boxes, essentials, the things that mattered. My laptop, my phone, my favorite hoodie, the one Emma always teased me about. Photographs? Nah, couldn't bring myself to do it. Too much. History. Too much. Pain. I organized my finances, opened a new bank account, transferred my funds, practicalities. Gotta be practical. Even when your heart is breaking. Or maybe it was already broken. Hard to tell the difference these days. I arranged for my mail to be forwarded, canceled subscriptions, took care of all the adult stuff. The stuff that makes a life a life. The stuff that I was now unmaking. The last night was weird. I walked through the house, room by room, a ghost in my own life. The living room, where we used to exist. The kitchen, where we'd shared meals, arguments. It was all a blur. The bedroom, our bedroom. I stood there for a long time, just looking. At the bed, the dresser, the emptiness. It felt strange, like I was trespassing, like I didn't belong there anymore. Which I guess I didn't. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. Just lay there, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment, every conversation, every comparison in my head, trying to make sense of it all, trying to understand why. But there were no answers, just emptiness. The morning came, gray and cold. I got up, showered, dressed, like it was any other day, like I was going to work. But I wasn't. I was leaving. I walked downstairs, suitcase in hand. The house was silent, still, like it was holding its breath. Emma was still asleep. I could hear her softly snoring. I didn't go in. Couldn't. Too complicated. I walked to the door, opened it, and hesitated. Just for a second. A tiny flicker of what? Hope? Regret? Or maybe just fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of being alone. But then I remembered. The blue balloons, the cake, the everything, and the fear vanished, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. I walked out the door, closed it behind me. No note, no explanation, just gone. Like a whisper in the wind. Like a dream that never happened. Like I was finally free. I got in my car, started the engine, and drove away. No looking back, just forward to something. I didn't know what, but it had to be better than that. It just had to be better than surprise! Emma squealed, her eyes sparkling with excitement as she pulled me into the living room. Happy birthday, Mark! I blinked, momentarily stunned by the sight before me. Balloons in every shade of blue imaginable. A giant banner proclaiming Happy 30th Mark. A table laden with enough food to feed a small army. And in the center of it all, a 3-tiered cake, adorned with intricate frosting and a miniature replica of... Was that Mark's favorite motorcycle? Wow, I mumbled, trying to hide my surprise and the growing unease in my gut. This is quite something. Emma beamed, oblivious to my discomfort. I know, right? I wanted to make it special. Mark deserves it. Mark. Her ex. The guy she dated for 5 years before me. The guy whose name seemed to pop up in every other conversation. The guy she always compared me to. And now here I was, standing in our living room, surrounded by a shrine to her ex-boyfriend's birthday. "It's very blue," I said, trying to find something, anything positive to say. "I know," Emma gushed. "It's his favorite color. Remember that time we went to that concert and he wore that blue shirt? He looked so—" She trailed off, a dreamy expression crossing her face. I did remember, because she had reminded me about it at least a dozen times. Apparently, Mark in a blue shirt was a defining moment in their relationship. A moment that apparently eclipsed anything we'd ever shared. "So," I said, trying to steer the conversation away from the blue-clad ex, "is Mark coming over? Or is this a virtual celebration?" Emma laughed. "Oh, he's coming. He'll be here any minute. I told him to come by after work." "Great, just what I needed. A front row seat to my wife's ex-boyfriend's birthday extravaganza." As if on cue, the doorbell rang. Emma practically sprinted to the door, her excitement palpable. "Mark!" she squealed, throwing her arms around him. "Happy birthday!" Mark, looking slightly bewildered by the over-the-top display, mumbled his thanks. He glanced at me, a flicker of amusement, pity, crossing his face. I just nodded, forcing a smile. The evening unfolded like a slow-motion train wreck. Emma fussed over Mark, showering him with attention, gifts, and, well, let's just say the cake-cutting ceremony was a little too intimate for my liking. I sat on the sidelines, nursing a beer, feeling like a spectator at my own wife's party. And the worst part? Emma acted like it was perfectly normal. Like celebrating her ex's birthday with this level of enthusiasm was just what you do. No apologies, no explanations, no awareness of how uncomfortable it was for me. As I watched them laughing, reminiscing, sharing inside jokes that I wasn't privy to, a realization dawned on me. This wasn't just a birthday celebration. It was a tribute. A celebration of their past, their shared history, their connection. A connection that apparently was stronger, more significant than anything we'd ever had. And in that moment, I knew. I knew that I wasn't just second best. I was irrelevant, a placeholder, a consolation prize. And the realization hit me like a punch to the gut. Because I loved Emma. I really did. But she didn't love me. Not the way I loved her. Not the way she loved him. And as I sat there, watching them blow out the candles on the ridiculously elaborate cake, a decision began to form in my mind. A decision that would change everything. Okay, so maybe the whole Mark's birthday extravaganza was the final straw. But it wasn't like this was a new thing. The comparisons, the subtle digs, the constant reminders of her past, it had been a steady drip, drip, drip of inadequacy. Like I was always being measured against some invisible yardstick, some standard I could never quite reach. It started subtly. Little things, really. "Mark used to love this song," she'd say while we were driving, her voice laced with a hint of longing? Or maybe it was just nostalgia. Either way, it made me feel like I was intruding on some sacred memory, some shared experience that I could never be a part of. Or, "Mark always knew how to make me laugh," she'd say after a particularly funny movie, her eyes sparkling with a hint of, what was it? Regret? Or maybe just comparison. Either way, it made my own attempts at humor feel inadequate. And then there were the more direct comparisons. "Mark was so good at fixing things," she'd say while I was struggling to assemble a bookshelf, her voice laced with a hint of disappointment? Or maybe it was just impatience. Either way, it made me feel like a failure. Or, "Mark always knew what to say to make me feel better," she'd say after a particularly bad day, her eyes filled with a hint of, what was it? Gratitude? Or maybe just yearning. Either way, it made my own attempts at comfort feel clumsy. And the worst part? She never seemed to notice. Or maybe she did, but she didn't care. It was like she couldn't help herself, couldn't stop comparing me to this ghost from her past, this idealized version of a man who, let's be honest, probably didn't even exist. I tried to talk to her about it. Emma, I'd say, my voice carefully neutral. It kind of bothers me when you compare me to Mark. She'd look at me, her brow furrowed in confusion. What? Why? I'm just saying. I know what you're saying. I'd interrupt, my voice a little sharper than I intended. But it makes me feel like I'm not good enough, like I'm always second best. She'd roll her eyes, that familiar gesture of dismissal. Oh, come on, Liam. Don't be so sensitive. It's just a comparison. It doesn't mean anything. Just a comparison. Right. Because comparing your husband to your ex constantly in every possible situation is just normal, healthy, totally not damaging to his self-esteem. I tried to let it go, tried to be the bigger person, tried to convince myself that it didn't matter, but it did. It chipped away at me, slowly, steadily, like a sculptor chipping away at a block of marble until all that was left was a shadow of the man I used to be. And the worst part? I couldn't even blame her. Not entirely, because I knew she didn't mean to hurt me. She was just careless, thoughtless, stuck in the past, and I was stuck with her, stuck in a relationship where I was always second best. Okay, so imagine this. Emma, waking up to an empty house. No Liam, no note, just silence. Creepy, unsettling silence. She probably thinks he's just gone, on a business trip, a spontaneous guy's weekend, maybe even just a really long run to clear his head. Liam had a thing for those, like marathon level long. She probably spends the day doing her usual thing. Yoga, brunch with the girls, maybe a little light shopping. Oblivious, blissfully unaware that her world is about to implode. Then the mail arrives. And there it is. A thick official-looking envelope addressed to her from a law firm, Bennett versus Carter. The words are stark, cold, final, divorce papers. She probably stares at it for a long time, like it's some kind of misprint. A joke. A really bad, tasteless joke. She probably picks it up, flips it over, checks the return address. Anything to avoid actually opening it. Because once she opens it, well, there's no going back. And then she does. Slowly, carefully, like it's a bomb about to explode. She reads the words, the legal jargon, the finality. Divorce. It's real. Liam, he's gone. For good. The initial reaction is probably shock, disbelief. This can't be happening. Liam wouldn't, would he? He's Liam. Reliable, dependable, always there. Even when she was being, well, let's just say less than supportive. Liam was always there. Then the anger, hot, burning rage. How dare he? How dare he leave her? Without a word, without an explanation, without even a lousy goodbye note. Who does he think he is? Doesn't he know she needs him? Doesn't he know well, she's used to him. She probably paces the house, phone clutched in her hand, dialing his number over and over again. Straight to voicemail, every single time. She texts him, furious, accusing, demanding answers. Nothing. She probably calls her friends, the girls, the ones who always told her Liam was too good for her. They'll cluck sympathetically, offer her wine, tell her she's better off without him. But she doesn't want their sympathy. She wants Liam. Or at least, she wants him. The confusion sets in slowly, creeping in like a fog. Why? Why did he do this? What did she do wrong? She replays every conversation, every argument, every comparison in her head, trying to find a clue, a reason, anything. But there's nothing. Or at least nothing she's willing to admit. She probably tells herself it's a mistake, a misunderstanding, that Liam will come back. He always does. He'll apologize, beg her to take him back, promise to be better. But deep down, a little voice whispers, No, he's not coming back. This is different. This is final. And as the day turns into night, and the silence of the empty house closes in around her, the reality of the situation sinks in. Liam is gone, and he's not coming back. He's left her, just gone. And she has no idea why, or maybe she does, but she's just not ready to face it. Yet. Okay, so picture this. Me, Liam, officially a free man, but also kind of a mess. I'm crashing at Ben's spare room because, hey, bachelor pads are overrated. Surrounded by takeout containers and half-empty beer bottles. It's not exactly the picture of sophisticated post-divorce self-discovery, but it's comfortable. Or at least familiar. Ben's been great, of course. The obligatory, dude, you okay? Talks, the endless supply of pizza, the general acceptance of my current state of semi-emotional wreckage. But Ben's Ben. He's a good friend, but he doesn't get it. Not really. Then there's Claire. Emma's best friend. Had been, I guess. Things are complicated now. Claire's been a constant in my life for years. Since high school, actually. She was always there. A quiet presence, a steady support, a friend. She and Emma were inseparable, thick as thieves. Claire was the bubbly one, the life of the party, the one who always had a smile for everyone. Emma was Emma, beautiful, charming, but complicated. Claire and I, we had our own thing. A quiet understanding, a shared sense of something. We'd talk for hours about everything and nothing. She'd listen, really listen, without judgment, without offering unsolicited advice. She just listened. And sometimes that's all you need. She'd always been respectful, loyal. She never crossed any lines, never said anything inappropriate. She was Emma's best friend, after all. That was sacred. But now, things are different. Emma's gone. Out of my life. And Claire, she's still here. She started with the usual, "I'm so sorry, Liam." The awkward hugs, the offers of casseroles. Seriously, is there some kind of universal law that dictates that people bring casseroles to newly divorced guys? But then she started checking in. Not just the polite, "How are you?" but actual, genuine concern. "How are you really doing, Liam?" she'd ask, her eyes searching mine, her expression worried. And I'd tell her. Or at least, I'd try to. It was hard talking about it, about Emma, about the emptiness. But Claire, she made it easy. She didn't push, didn't pry, just listened. She'd bring over movies, the cheesy ones we both secretly loved, the ones Emma would roll her eyes at. We'd order pizza, make fun of the ridiculous plot lines, and laugh. Real, genuine laughter. The kind I hadn't felt in a long time. She'd talk about her work, her crazy clients, her even crazier boss. She'd tell me stories about her family, her awkward dating experiences, her life. And it was refreshing to hear about something other than my own misery. She never judged me, never offered unsolicited advice, never once said, "I told you so." She just supported me in a way that Emma never had. One night, we're watching some ridiculous action movie, explosions and car chases filling the screen, and I just break down. All the emotions I'd been suppressing, the anger, the hurt, the confusion. It all comes pouring out. I tell her about Emma, about the comparisons, the birthday party, the everything. I tell her about the emptiness, the feeling of being second best, and she just listens. She doesn't interrupt, doesn't offer platitudes, just listens. When I'm finally done, exhausted and emotionally drained, she doesn't say anything. She just reaches out and takes my hand. Her touch is comforting, warm, real. "I'm so sorry, Liam," she says, her voice soft, sincere. "You didn't deserve that." And in that moment, I realize she gets it. She really gets it. She understands. And it's a relief. A huge, overwhelming relief. She doesn't try to fix me, doesn't try to tell me how I should feel. She just accepts me. Broken, messy, confused me. And that means everything. She's been my friend for years, Emma's best friend. But now, she's something more. She's my support system, my confidant, my friend. And in a world that suddenly feels so cold and empty, her presence is a light, a warm, comforting light. Okay, so picture this. Me, Liam, officially on the market, but also officially terrified. Dating? Seriously? It felt like learning to ride a bike again after like 20 years. Except this bike was covered in emotional baggage and the training wheels were, well, Claire. She wasn't setting me up on dates, exactly. More like gently nudging me back into the world. You should come to this art gallery opening, she'd say. They're showcasing this amazing local artist, and there's gonna be like a ton of free wine. Free wine? Sold. Or, there's this cool jazz club downtown. They have live music on Tuesdays. We should check it out. Jazz? Not exactly my scene, but Claire was going, and honestly, just being around her. It was easy, comfortable, like slipping into a pair of well-worn jeans. These weren't dates, not officially. Just two friends hanging out. But honestly, it felt like more. More than just friendship. It was connection. We'd talk for hours about everything and nothing. She'd tell me about her day, her crazy clients, her even crazier boss. I'd tell her about my day, about work, about the new hotel project in Bali. Seriously, my life was a whirlwind of international travel and emotional turmoil. Go figure. But mostly, we talked about stuff. Real stuff. Not just surface-level chit-chat, but deep, meaningful conversations about life, love, loss, the meaning of it all. Okay, maybe that's a bit dramatic, but hey, I was going through a lot. She'd ask me about Emma, about the divorce, about everything. And I'd tell her, or at least I'd try to. It was hard, talking about it, about the pain, the betrayal, the confusion. But Claire, she made it easy. She didn't judge, didn't criticize, didn't offer unsolicited advice. She just listened. She'd share her own stories, her own struggles, her own vulnerabilities. She'd tell me about her awkward dating experiences, her disastrous attempts at online dating, her everything. And it was refreshing to know that I wasn't alone in my messiness. One night, we're at this little Italian restaurant, the kind with checkered tablecloths and flickering candles, and we're talking about, well, I don't even remember what we were talking about. But then Claire says something that makes me stop and think. You know, Liam, she says, her voice soft, you're a really good guy. I laugh, a self-deprecating chuckle. Yeah, right, I say. I'm the guy who got dumped by his wife for her ex. That's not what I mean, she says, her eyes meeting mine. I mean, you're kind, you're generous, you're genuine, you care about people, you're a good person. I shrug, uncomfortable with the compliment. I'm just trying to be a decent human being, I say. That's more than most people can manage, she says, her smile warm, genuine. And Emma, she never really appreciated that. The words hang in the air, unspoken, but true. Emma, she'd never really seen me. Not really. She'd seen the husband, the provider, the idea of me. But she'd never really seen me. Claire, on the other hand, she saw me, the real me, the goofy, awkward, sometimes insecure Liam, and she liked him, or at least I think she did. We finished dinner, the conversation flowing easily, comfortably. There's a connection between us, a shared understanding that goes beyond friendship. It's something else, something more. As we're walking back to her car, she turns to me, her eyes sparkling in the moonlight. Thank you, Liam, she says, her voice soft. For what? I ask. For being you, she says. And in that moment, I realize she means it. She really means it. And it's a revelation, a huge, overwhelming revelation. Someone sees me, really sees me, and likes what she sees. It's amazing and terrifying because this is new, and I'm not sure I'm ready for it, but I'm willing to try. For her, for us. Okay, so it wasn't like a lightning bolt, this realization. It was more like dawn breaking. Slow, gradual, but undeniable. Claire. She'd been there all along, a constant in the background of my life, a quiet melody I hadn't really been listening to. But now the music was swelling, the notes resonating, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. It started with the little things. The way she'd remember my favorite coffee order, even though I'd only mentioned it once. The way she'd laugh at my stupid jokes, even the ones that weren't really that funny. The way she'd look at me sometimes, with this intensity in her eyes that made my heart skip a beat. Then there were the bigger things, like the time I was freaking out about a work deadline, and she showed up at my door with a stack of takeout containers and a bottle of my favorite whiskey. Stress eating and emotional support, she'd announced, her smile a mix of amusement and concern. We'd stayed up all night, working, talking, laughing, and by the time the sun came up, the deadline seemed less daunting, and the world less lonely. Or the time I had a particularly bad day, the kind where everything seemed to go wrong, and I just broke down. She held me, let me cry, didn't say a word, just held me, and it was safe, comforting, like coming home after a long, exhausting journey. And then there were the moments, the stolen glances, the lingering touches, the way her hand would brush against mine, sending a shiver down my spine. The way she'd look at me sometimes, with this longing in her eyes that made my breath catch. One night we were at the beach, watching the sunset. The sky was ablaze with color, the waves crashing against the shore, the air filled with the salty tang of the ocean. We were sitting on a blanket, sharing a bottle of wine, the silence comfortable, companionable. "It's beautiful," she said, her voice soft, almost a whisper. "Yeah," I agreed, my gaze fixed on the horizon. But I wasn't just looking at the sunset. I was looking at her, at the way the golden light illuminated her hair, the way her eyes sparkled with something that made my heart ache. She turned to me, her gaze meeting mine, and in that moment, I saw it. The truth, the love that had been there all along, hidden beneath layers of friendship, loyalty, respect. A love that was pure, unconditional, real. "Liam," she said, her voice barely a whisper, She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. I knew. I knew what she was going to say, and I knew. I felt the same. We sat there for a long time, just looking at each other. The silence wasn't awkward, wasn't uncomfortable. It was charged, filled with unspoken emotions, with a connection that went beyond words, beyond friendship, beyond anything I'd ever felt before. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and purple, I realized Claire wasn't just my friend. She wasn't just my confidant. She was the one I'd been searching for all along, the one who saw me, really saw me, and loved me. Not for what I had, or what I could offer, but for me, just me. And it was terrifying, exhilarating, and right. Because with Claire, I wasn't second best. I wasn't a consolation prize. I was her first choice. And that was everything. Okay, so picture this. Emma, 6 months post-divorce, sipping her overpriced latte, scrolling through Instagram, probably checking out her ex's latest girlfriend, because hey, who doesn't do a little post-breakup stalking? She's moved on, or so she tells herself. Found a new apartment, reconnected with old friends, even started dating again. Though, let's be honest, none of those guys hold a candle to Liam or even Mark, for that matter. Then, the mail arrives. Not the usual bills and junk mail. This is different. A thick, creamy envelope addressed in elegant calligraphy. She recognizes the handwriting. Liam's. Her heart skips a beat. Maybe he's come to his senses? Maybe he wants her back. She tears open the envelope, her fingers trembling with a mix of anticipation and dread. And then she sees it. The invitation. Not just any invitation. A wedding invitation. Liam's wedding invitation. No, she whispers, her voice barely audible. No way. She reads the words, the names blurring before her eyes. Liam. And Claire. Claire? Her Claire? Her best friend? The one she'd shared secrets with, confided in, cried on the shoulder of? The one she'd always considered safe? The shock hits her like a tidal wave, washing away any pretense of moving on. This can't be happening. Liam wouldn't, would he? Marry Claire? Her Claire? The one who'd always been there? In the background, a quiet shadow, a friend. The disbelief gives way to a cold, hard realization. He did. He actually did. He married Claire, her best friend, the one who'd always been there for him. While she was busy comparing him to Mark, dismissing his feelings, taking him for granted, Claire was there, listening, supporting, loving him. And now, he was marrying her. The regret washes over her, a bitter tide of missed opportunities and what-ifs. All those times she'd pushed him away. All those times she'd chosen Mark's memory over Liam's reality. All those times she'd settled. She'd settled for Liam, the safe choice, the reliable option, the one who'd always be there. And now, he wasn't. She remembers the comparisons, the subtle digs, the constant reminders of her past. She remembers Liam's hurt expression, his quiet resignation, his departure. And she realizes she drove him away. She pushed him into Claire's arms. The anger flares, hot and fierce. How could they? How could Liam? How could Claire betray her like this? Marry behind her back? Didn't they know? Didn't they care? How this would make her feel? But the anger is quickly replaced by a deeper, more profound emotion. Loss. She'd lost him forever. To Claire, her best friend, the one who'd always been there. She stares at the invitation, the elegant calligraphy mocking her, the date circled in a cruel twist of fate. It's the same day as her anniversary with Liam. The anniversary she'd never really celebrated. The anniversary she'd always downplayed. The irony isn't lost on her. She'd spent years chasing a ghost, a memory, a fantasy. And in doing so, she'd lost the real thing. The man who loved her, the man who'd been there for her, the man she'd taken for granted. And now, he was gone, married to someone else, someone who appreciated him, loved him, cherished him. The realization hits her hard, a punch to the gut that leaves her breathless. She'd lost him forever. And it was her fault. She closes her eyes, a single tear escaping, tracing a path through her carefully applied makeup. It's over. It's really over. And she has no one to blame but herself. The church was bathed in soft sunlight, the air filled with the scent of lilies and the hushed whispers of anticipation. Emma sat in the back pew, hidden in the shadows, her heart a leaden weight in her chest. She watched as Claire, radiant in a simple white dress, walked down the aisle towards Liam, who stood tall and proud, a smile illuminating his face. It was a small ceremony, intimate and heartfelt. Close friends, family, a few colleagues, no A-list celebrities, no ostentatious displays of wealth. Just love. Pure, unadulterated love. The kind of love Emma had always dreamed of, the kind she'd foolishly thrown away. The vows were simple, heartfelt, spoken with a conviction that made Emma's throat tighten. Liam, her Liam, was pledging his life, his love, his everything to Claire. Her Claire. The words echoed in the church, each syllable a hammer blow to Emma's already shattered heart. I, Liam, take you, Claire. She remembered their own wedding, a grand affair, filled with pomp and circumstance, but lacking this, this genuine emotion, this raw, unfiltered love. She'd been so caught up in the spectacle, the image, the fantasy, that she'd missed the substance. The reception was held in a charming garden, fairy lights twinkling in the trees, laughter and music filling the air. Liam and Claire, hand in hand, radiated happiness. They danced, they laughed, they belonged together. A perfect match. A match she'd unwittingly helped create. Emma watched them from afar, a silent observer, a ghost at her own life's funeral. She saw the way Liam looked at Claire, the adoration in his eyes, the tenderness in his touch. She saw the way Claire looked back at him, the love shining through her smile, the gratitude in her gaze. And she knew she'd lost him. Lost him to the one person who truly deserved him. The guests were oblivious to her presence, caught up in the celebration, the joy, the love. They congratulated Liam and Claire, offered toasts, shared stories. Emma stood on the sidelines, a silent spectator, a stranger at her own life's party. She saw familiar faces, friends they'd shared, colleagues they'd both worked with. They smiled at her, offered polite greetings, but their eyes held a hint of pity. Or maybe it was judgment. Or maybe it was just awareness. Awareness of her loss, her regret, her mistake. The music swelled, a romantic ballad filling the air. Liam and Claire took to the dance floor, their bodies moving in perfect sync, their eyes locked in a silent conversation of love. Emma watched them, her heart aching, her throat tightening. She remembered dancing with Liam, their bodies awkward, their movements hesitant. There had been affection, but not this passion, this connection, this love. She couldn't take it anymore. The laughter, the music, the happiness, it was all too much. She slipped away unnoticed, leaving the party, the garden, the life she'd thrown away. As she walked down the moonlit street, her heels clicking on the pavement, the tears finally came. Silent, bitter tears of regret. She'd had it all, the love, the security, the man. But she'd been too blind to see it, too caught up in her own fantasies, her own insecurities, her own past. And now, it was too late. Liam was gone, married to Claire, her Claire, the one who'd always been there, the one who truly deserved him. She walked on, the city lights blurring through her tears, the sound of her own footsteps echoing in the silence of the night. She was alone, truly alone. And it was her fault. She'd made her choice, and now she had to live with the consequences. Okay, so married life with Claire? It was different. Different from anything I'd ever known. With Emma, it had always been complicated. A constant push and pull, a dance of expectations and disappointments. With Claire, it was easy, effortless, like breathing. We bought a house, a cozy little place with a big backyard and a porch swing. No mansion, no sprawling estate, just home. A place where we could be together. We decorated it together, arguing over paint colors and furniture styles, laughing at our own indecisiveness. No designer labels, no expensive artwork. Just stuff we liked. Stuff that made us happy. We cooked together, experimenting with new recipes, burning dinners, laughing at our culinary disasters. No fancy chefs, no Michelin star meals. Just food. Shared. Enjoyed. We talked, a lot, about everything and nothing. Our dreams, our fears, our everything. No secrets, no hidden agendas. Just honesty. Open, honest communication. The kind I'd never experienced before. We supported each other's passions. She encouraged my work, my crazy ideas, my everything. I cheered her on as she pursued her architectural dreams, designing sustainable homes, building a better future. No competition, no jealousy, just mutual respect, admiration, love. We argued, of course, everyone argues. But our arguments were different, constructive, respectful. We listened to each other, acknowledged each other's feelings, found compromises. No yelling, no name-calling, no drama, just communication. Healthy, honest communication. We made love. Passionate, intimate, soul-connecting love. The kind that leaves you breathless, fulfilled, and loved. Truly loved. No comparisons, no ghosts from the past, just us. In that moment, it was just us. We built a life, a real life, filled with laughter, love, and happiness. The kind of happiness I'd never thought possible. The kind of happiness I deserved. And sometimes, late at night, as I lay in bed, Claire sleeping peacefully beside me, I'd think about Emma, about the life we'd almost had, the life I'd almost settled for, and I'd feel a pang of sadness, not for what I'd lost, but for what she'd lost, because she'd never know this kind of love, this kind of happiness. She'd always be chasing a ghost, a memory, a fantasy. But then I'd look at Claire, at her peaceful face, her gentle smile, and the sadness would fade, replaced by a deep, abiding gratitude. Because I had found my happiness, my love, my everything. And it was real, more real than anything I'd ever known. And as I held her close, her warmth seeping into me, I'd whisper, "Thank you. Thank you for being you. Thank you for loving me. Thank you for everything." Because with Claire, I wasn't just Liam. I was better, stronger, happier. And that was everything.